welcome to Wrestling with Egos. Before we get into anything else, and I introduce those two gents that accompany me each and every week on this fine wrestling show, I want this to serve as a public service announcement and a parental advisory. Something has happened tonight in the world of wrestling, Friday, November 13th, that all three of us are angry about. Legitimately angry. Not Brock Lesnar beating Kofi Kingston in 9 seconds for the title angry. Legitimately angry. We are probably going to swear, which means I have a lot of work to do in post-production with goat sounds and dolphin sounds covering up all of our foul language. I'm probably going to miss something. I'm sorry. You've been warned. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Wrestling with Egos. Now let's really get this thing started. My name's Patrick, joined as always by my boys, Brian and RJ. Gents, how we doing aside from tonight's news?
There's a lot of great things to talk about.
Oh, yeah. There's a ton of great stuff to talk about. This might have been, we always talk about how WrestleMania is like wrestling Christmas. This might have been like the surprise gift that Santa brought a month early. And that surprise gift might have been like a flipping Ferrari or something, because that's what it feels like. That's literally what it feels like. Full gear. If you guys missed it, this might have been the most enjoyable pay-per-view I have seen since I have lived in the state of Ohio, which is now 11 years. I have not felt this good about watching a pay-per-view. And it goes along with one of the many constant themes of this show that I think all three of us can agree with. And it's the phrase, "This is why we love wrestling." Speaking of that, I want to rewind to our last show under the filing of "This is why we love wrestling." You guys might remember the story of RJ's oldest daughter, Tessie, and her dressing up as Thunder Rosa for Halloween. Thunder Rosa retweeted it. It became this massive, massive story, well, at least to us here on Wrestling with Egos and our collective family. Let's continue that story, because apparently a certain former NWA Women's World Champion was not done being awesome to us. So all three of us tweet out the link to the show. You can follow all three of us. You see the socials in our lower thirds. And we posted on Facebook. We posted on Twitter. We tagged Thunder Rosa in it last week because we started the show praising her and how awesome she is and how generous with her time she was to a 6-year-old girl who dressed up as her for Halloween. Thunder Rosa not only, first off, real quick, raise your hand, gentlemen, if Thunder Rosa retweeted your posting of our show. So 3 retweets. Then she goes to YouTube. She's looking at what you're looking at. There's that share button down there. She herself clicked it and sent that out. Not attached to any of us. Here, go watch. Next question. Raise your hand if she is now following you on Twitter. What the hell is going on here? So unofficially safe to say, Thunder Rosa, friend of show?
Sure.
I'm claiming it. I'm claiming it. She might dispute it and just go, "No, guys, I was just being nice." Cool. Fine. You're our friend. We love you. Last week's show was the most watched show in our almost 2-year history. Thank you guys for joining us, especially you new guys. The whole point of this show is that phrase. This is why we love wrestling. For us, it's fun. It's community. It's passion. It's creativity. It's all the stuff that should drive a human being. And it's just in this wonderful little world that it just works for us. And then there's crap like tonight that makes us not necessarily hate wrestling, but hate people involved with wrestling, namely Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the biggest piece of garbage in the history of wrestling. No disputing that one. So earlier tonight, 6:30-ish Eastern time, Zelena Vega tweeted out, "I support unionization," or "I'm in favor of unionization."
The whole tweet was 3 words. It was, "I support unionization."
All right. 10 minutes later, this isn't like SpongeBob thing like last week where we had to reconnect because Brian froze up and one eternity later. Not that. Literally 10 minutes later.
5:46 and 5:56.
WWE announced that they had released her. Think about this for a second. She supports unionization, then they fired her. I never really try to pull this kind of rank on this show. I'm executive producer. Can I get the first swear in? Bullshit. So you mean all right, I have a quick story about this. RJ tells us all of this. RJ breaks the news to both Brian and I at 6:46 or somewhere around there. I'm at dinner with my 2 daughters. We went to Red Robin. We're chowing down. I get this message from RJ, and I'm just flabbergasted. And my oldest daughter, who is 11, asked me what I'm so ticked off about. And I, very broad brush, but I explained to her what a labor union does, what they're for, what they stand for, and how they keep employees from getting screwed over.
When I'm not laid off from my job because of COVID, I'm part of one.
All 3 of us are.
Yeah.
All 3 of us are union. And trust me, you guys remember earlier this year when I had the hand injury? If it wouldn't have been for the union, I might have gotten fired.
I'm not going to get into any details here, but earlier this year, the union saved my ass for sure.
Yeah. Has a union saved your ass, Brian? Or have you been the usual Boy Scout that you usually are?
Right.
I mean, it's nice to have them have your back. I've never really needed one.
Hashtag Boy Scout. Anyway, I gave a very broad brush explanation of what a union does. She understood. I then told her what happened. This is more or less reaction as she is taking a bite, as she has a couple of those delicious Red Robin French fries with the seasoning salt. An 11-year-old understands this. Tony Khan, if you ever see this, hire her. First off, the woman is talented. Second off, the woman can talk. She is probably the best promo cutter in all of women's wrestling. Yeah. She's better. She's better than all 4 horsewomen. I can't really count Alexa Bliss right now because Alexa is doing her own.
Yeah, that's a different thing. Yeah.
She's doing her own stream of brilliance. Nobody in AEW can touch her on the mic.
No.
Hell, she's better on the mic than 90 to 95% of the male roster. I'm sorry, RJ, including AEW's new #1 contender. Sorry, Kenny Omega's a great wrestler, but
I don't love him. I don't love him because of what he says into a microphone.
Exactly. And that's why.
For the uninitiated, one of you, because I don't know that I could do it very eloquently at all. One of you walk us through why WWE specifically does not have or is not unionized.
Well, professional wrestling in general isn't unionized. But we'll stay WWE centric on this. And RJ, if I get details on this fuzzy, feel free to jump in and correct me. WWE lists considers all of their talent independent contractors. See,
If I start, I'm not stopping, and I'm going to swear a lot. So I'm trying to not start yet.
I'll let you go rant mode on here in a couple seconds, okay? I'll let you do it, and I'll give you a few minutes where I know I'm gonna have to like laser focus and just like, all right, beat.
That's kind of why I'm trying to not throw him in. Like,
I promise I'll give you a block. I'll give you a block. They consider them independent contractors, and in theory, they should be able to go work wherever. Kind of like boxing. Boxing, you don't necessarily have to be in one governing body. WBO, WBC, IBF, whatever the fourth one is, I can't remember. But, you can hold all of those championships. You can be sanctioned under all of those governing bodies, whereas you can't in, say, the UFC. You can't in professional wrestling, period. End of story. But they're still considered independent contractors. But because they're trying to claim exclusive, Brian, help me with the word.
Exclusivity.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why we pay you the big bucks here. That word. They try to claim that. They should be claiming them as employees, not independent contractors. And if they're being claimed as employees, then they should be entitled to the same benefits that everybody in their freaking office is entitled to, like health insurance. I did that purposely. That's the big one. And that has been something that even going back to the 80s, I remember in the interview Jesse Ventura did before he was even governor of Minnesota, talking about, how wrestling needs to be unionized.
Ventura was huge into trying to get wrestling unionized.
Oh yeah, that's why he and Vince pretty much hate each other at this point. At this point in reality, but for WWE to be so blatant in terms of this, there's only one good thing. Well, two good things that can come of this. Number one, somebody else can pick the ball up and take care of wrestlers. And honestly and truly, the promotion I think that would most likely do it would be AEW. Which would, because if one does it, everybody else has to follow suit, because you'll lose everybody to them. Which at this point in time, I wouldn't mind seeing Vince McMahon get a proverbial foot shoved up his ass for this. So two great things can happen out of this. Big picture, unionization happens because somebody decides this is the right thing to do. Secondly, and this is very probable, Aleister Black's a dead man in WWE.
I was thinking a little while ago before we started about how I would hate to be the person on the other end of whatever phone calls Aleister Black has been making this evening.
Yes, I would be too. I got a feeling this might actually even get ugly.
Yeah,
a legal perspective, this might get ugly. In a perfect world, at the way this is going, can you please just job him out and then release him?
Yeah, right.
Because you know what's going to happen. He gets released. First off, there should be a bidding war right now for the services of Thea Trinidad, her real name. She is an amazing talent. She is an amazing worker. She has worked in WWE. She has worked in Impact. She has played the role of AJ Lee in a movie.
Yeah.
She was AJ in the movie based off of Paige's life, Fighting with My Family. And pulled AJ off pretty damn well. There should be a bidding war for her, which then should be followed suit by a bidding war for her equally talented husband, Aleister Black. All right, RJ, I'll start. I'll just cue it up for you. Rant mode on.
My two least favorite words in the professional wrestling business are independent contractor, because it's if I'm an independent contractor, I can stream whatever the fuck I want to stream on the internet. If I'm an independent contractor, I can work for whatever independent wrestling company I want to work for. If I'm an independent contractor, you don't have me under contract. If I'm an independent contractor, I can go do whatever I want to do. If I'm an independent contractor, you can't force me to go overseas and get molested by United States military members like Ashley was. If I'm an independent contractor, you can't put me on the TV screen and force me to make out with your old ass like Vince did to Trish. If I'm an independent contractor, you cannot force me to do the things that WWE forces their employees to do. Let's throw the independent contractor thing out the window for a minute and dig a little deeper into the WWE that happens around that place. They're the only major company, and I'm not saying the only major wrestling company. They're the only major company that is actively firing groups of people in the middle of a global pandemic. They are garbage. They treat their fans like trash. Never give anybody, we're going to give you what you want. What was that, last December? I'm still waiting for that to ever happen. Matt Hardy just had to finish a storyline on AEW television that started on WWE television. The Hurricane and Gangrel showing up on the Elite Deletion. That was the thing where Gangrel kidnapped Hurricane Helms during the WWE deletion thing that he did. But they never finished that. I can go through a laundry list of things the WWE has never finished. What they do finish is the careers of independent contracted professional wrestlers. It's garbage. I'm going to be completely honest, and I apologize in advance because I am partially speaking to the two of you as well. If you subscribe to the WWE Network, if you buy merchandise directly from the WWE, if you give them ratings every week, for supporting that company. That company is trash. They treat their employees like garbage. They treat their fans like garbage. From Vince down, it is absolute trash. They're not independent contractors. If you can control my name outside of your company, if you can control what I am and am not allowed to do, I am not an independent contractor in any way, shape, or form. There is an American entrepreneur. He's also a lawyer. His name is Andrew Yang. You might recognize the name because he ran for president. Andrew Yang despises Vince McMahon. Andrew Yang is a huge wrestling fan. There is a probability, not possibility, probability that Andrew Yang ends up within the cabinet in some way, shape, or form of Joe Biden's administration when he takes over as the president of the United States. Andrew Yang tweeted today that he has not forgotten about and will come after Vince McMahon for the independent contractor that he pulls with these employees. He is the one that started it. All the other companies do it, but Vince is the reason why they all get away with it. It is absolute garbage. I refuse, under any circumstances. I have a legitimate sorry. I have a legitimate person who I am personally friends with. Like, not just an acquaintance, not somebody that I've known through the years, like hung out with, been friends with, been buddy with, like on a regular basis in the past, who works for this company, and I still don't see any reason why I would ever put any of my dollars into supporting that company. Anybody who is going to let somebody get molested the way that Vince let Ashley get molested overseas, and there are tons of witnesses that say that it happened outside of the few WWE executives that shove it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen. Vince McMahon is the devil. Vince McMahon is a horrible person. His family is absolute garbage as well. Like, they put on this facade. Like, the Connor's Cure thing has nothing to do with giving a shit about cancer. Has nothing to do with giving a shit about a kid who died of cancer. It has nothing to do with any of that. It is all a PR stunt. It is all for publicity. And there have been multiple people who have been put on WWE television or exploited by WWE television for their cancer, for their leukemia, for their breast cancer, that have said that it is perfectly clear that it is all publicity, that WWE does not give a and it is all the way to the top. It starts with Vince McMahon, and it leaks down through everybody in this company. If it's not about WWE inside the WWE bubble, they do not give a they do not care about their wrestlers. They do not care about their fans. I know I keep saying that, but I am so over it. Tonight was the last straw for me. Like, I just can't take it anymore. WWE is the worst company. Like, there's no way. Like, oh my gosh, I can't even, like, there are so many people within that company that I pray to God leave at some point in the future so that I can watch them again. There are so many people in that company that I am massively huge fans of that I will not ever watch again as long as they are under that WWE umbrella. I will never see another live AJ Styles match again in my life because he said that this is the last contract that he's ever going to sign, and he's with the WWE. If you support WWE in any way, period. It's ridiculous.
Rant mode off?
Yeah.
All right. Take a deep breath. I'd like to try and put a smile on your face now.
Wait, one more thing. The people at the top level of All Elite Wrestling, not just the EVPs, obviously Cody and Kenny and the Young Bucks and Brandy, not just the people that are in management, but the top tier level people that are on the roster. Moxley, Jericho are the first two that come to mind, but there are a couple more that I can't think of right now because my mind is all everywhere. Are considered employees, sign contracts as employees, have health insurance as employees. That's how you treat your people.
Rant mode off. RJ, as the rant master of hell, the entire world, Well said. I can't say anything else. That being said, Brian, in light of what RJ said, I'll ask you a question. There was a match that you wanted to discuss. Do you still want to do that this week? Or do you want to wait till next week?
The match in question does deserve match of the year consideration, and that's a discussion that we will have down the road when we talk about our second annual EEs, which will will happen New Year's week, but we can table that for now.
Personally, and this is kind of a on the fly thing, thank you, because with the way RJ went off, I kind of, out of respect to our brother and his just grade A, like Kobe beef rant. I mean, damn. Let's go ahead and talk some fun stuff. Hey, RJ, just smile as much as you can to show me how much you enjoyed Full Gear.
I can't smile big enough.
I know. This is how much I enjoyed Full Gear. Even before tonight, I was kind of leaning toward I'm not a WWE guy. I'm an NXT fan.
Right.
I haven't watched Raw or SmackDown in God knows how long. I watch NXT. One of my favorite wrestlers in NXT may or may not be RJ's friend that he was mentioning. Draw your own. If you're smart, you can figure out who it is. Holy, what a pay-per-view. Brian, I know all three of us have watched it, which for us to watch a pay-per-view that's not WWE centric, this thing had to be just a screaming insanity. And it was. Brian, what was your favorite match of the entire night? Just name the match, because we'll end up talking about it. I guarantee it. But what was your favorite match of the entire night?
There were actually two that had my attention from start to finish. The first one was Cody versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship. I got to witness the anointing of Darby Allin as pretty much the next big thing that company has, and dare I say, all of wrestling.
We knew it was coming too.
Yes. And the other match that really impressed me was the opening match of the night, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. That match specifically, I found myself focusing on Hangman Page quite a bit in that match because he wrestles with a sense of urgency.
Yes.
Very
That a lot of people don't wrestle with. Like, he wrestles like every move is going to be his last move, so he better make it count. I honestly don't know where he goes from here.
Well, if you watch BTE, it looks like if you watch BTE and you also watch the end of Full Gear, they're teasing something.
Yeah.
Don't know where they're going yet, but they're definitely teasing something. I've been talking about the redemption angle of Hangman for a while. I think this is the beginning. RJ, was your favorite match one of those two?
No.
Was your favorite match the same as mine?
Probably.
The match 7 years in the making?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. We will talk about that dead last. Let's start the pay-per-view. Let's start the pay-per-view off and start the conversation off at the same match. Hangman and Kenny. RJ, 2 weeks ago last week, even though we filmed it 2 weeks ago, last week, you talked about how this match, or how Kenny Omega was on the precipice of getting back to being the cleaner. I don't think he's getting back to anymore. That was a New Japan Kenny Omega match. The same time, you would think if Kenny Omega was going to have that kind of match, he would be bringing his opponent along with him. I do not think you can make that case. I don't think he was bringing Hangman Adam Page with him. I think Hangman met him at his level.
I 100% agree. It was I'm not necessarily putting Hangman in the same stratosphere as guys like Okada.
No.
It was a match like that. Kenny did not drag Okada to a great match the way that he drug Hiroki Go to Sleep to great matches when they wrestled, or Ishii. A lot of guys drag Ishii to great matches. He didn't. It never felt that way. It felt like Hangman was supposed to, as much as this was Kenny getting back to being Kenny, this was Hangman showing everybody who doesn't know that Hangman is one of the best professional wrestlers on earth.
1,000,000% agree. As great as Kenny looked, that's the Kenny Omega I expect to see. Until Omega has a #1 contenders match or any kind of high profile match on a card, I expect Kenny Omega to deliver, because I mean, hell, he is the best bout machine. I don't expect that kind of match from Hangman Adam Page. And I don't expect it. I also don't doubt that it's possible. And Full Gear was the proof. Hangman, you know how we're all college football guys, and we always talk about how when your team is playing a tomato can, sometimes your team will take a few plays off and they'll play down to that tomato can. So at the same time, if you're not on the level of a top tier guy, you raise your own bar and you meet them. And that to me is exactly what Hangman did. And this, to me, as great as Kenny was, I almost have to give the gold star of the match to Hangman, because that's not the Hangman we're used to seeing. That is a better Hangman, a much better Hangman. To me, that Hangman should have gone over Jericho at the Double or Nothing that RJ may or may not have been at.
Was definitely it. I have to call back to something that we discussed a while back.
Call back, and then we got to get Brian's take on this one as well.
I just would like to mention that Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page put that match together in a match time that was 11 seconds shorter than Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger at Starrcade 97.
Thank you. Oh my God. I was like, where is he going with this? Hell yes. Brian.
Just saying.
How did you feel about that one? How did you, not just RJ's comment that he just made, which was just stellar, but how did you feel about Hangman and Omega?
It was, a banger of a way to kick off a pay-per-view. It's a match that could have main evented the pay-per-view. If that had been the main event, I don't think anybody would have cared, because those two guys are definitely worth that slot. And the fact that it was the first match just kind of shows you the depth. You know, I mean, I really didn't hate any match that I saw the whole night.
Oh
I mean,
no.
every match like served a purpose and everybody showed out. I didn't think, well, geez, that was a screw up. Well, geez, there was a botch. Gee, that was, poor timing or anything like that. I just thought it was everybody did a very well executed job with their time that they got.
My opinion, worst match on the entire card was Sheeta and Nyla Rose, and that match sure as hell didn't suck.
Right.
But if you had to pick what was the worst match of the card, it was that one, and that match did not suck. Them two girls beat the shit out of each other. Nyla Rose isn't a gentle worker because of her size. She's a larger woman, and she's a powerhouse. And I'm sorry, as pretty as she is, I do not want to be kicked by Hikaru Shida.
Yeah, no.
I do not want to be kneed in the face by that woman. I do not care that she dresses like Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII, which is really awesome, but I still don't want to be kneed in the face by that woman.
I hadn't put that together yet in my head.
Really?
Really, I was never really I am a gamer. We're
Okay.
both gamers, but I was never really a Final Fantasy person. 7 is the only one that I ever played though. But I was never really super, super into it, so I never put that together. But as soon as you said that,
I didn't put it together until 3 or 4 months ago because I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4, and I just noticed, I'm like, wait a minute, Tifa's I've seen that get up that Tifa's wearing. What is that? And then I watched Dynamite. I'm like, son of a gun.
I gotta think Kenny has something to do with that.
Or she might be a gamer as well.
Right, or that, yeah.
I mean, that might be her thing as well. I mean, Final Fantasy VII isn't necessarily slightly popular game. It only spawned 2 sequels in a movie.
Yeah.
And it got a complete remake for current gen consoles that Square Enix took a year and a half to do just to make sure it was flawless. Brian, what match do you want to talk about next? There's no wrong answer except for the tag match. We're talking about that last.
Right. I'd actually like to talk about Moxley and Kingston next. Because
you lead.
I've asked both of you before for backstory on Eddie Kingston, because until he showed up on AEW television, shocker, I didn't know who he was or what his history was or the kinds of things he had done. And I wasn't prepared to feel the way I felt in the lead up to it. And the the promo package that they put before the match was stellar, and you understood Kingston's motivation. This was his shot at the big time, and to the detriment of a lot of other things in his life, apparently. It's like, I'm just trying to put 2 and 2 together here. Here we are, and it was another brutal match in the vein of the match Moxley had with Omega, the lights out match. The things that they did to each other, good Lord, it still makes me wince thinking about it.
I want to
rub alcohol, man.
Oh my! Thank you. That was it. I have seen, and here's where I'm going to swear a little bit. I've seen a lot of watching wrestling. I watched ECW religiously. I watched New Jack blade people. I've seen footage of the mass transit incident. I've seen New Jack and Vic Grimes fall off that whatever that platform was when Vic Grimes didn't want to go. I've seen Sabu and Terry Funk in a barbed wire match.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I've seen Sid in WCW break his freaking leg. I have never, and I've seen thumbtacks. I've seen thumbtacks, I've seen thumbtacks, and I've seen thumbtacks. It still hurts. Anytime it happens, I feel horrible for the guy. Teresa is watching the pay-per-view with me, and she sees this. Now, keep in mind, you guys have heard me say this a million times about my wife. More importantly than anything else, she is a nurse. The thumbtacks are there, and then Eddie Kingston gets the alcohol. My wife starts squirming before the top of the bottle even comes off. I have no idea what's going on. Like, he's got a bottle of water. She went, no, that's rubbing up. That's 70% alcohol. That's the stuff that I use to clean wounds. Like, oh my God. So imagine just tiny little needle pricks all over your back, and now you're going to have that poured on you. What kind of hell is that? I may or may not have had a very butt puckering moment right there. Holy crap. I've never seen that before in my life. And even though it wasn't gory, even though it wasn't even remotely disturbing, that might have been one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen. I have one problem with it. John Moxley didn't sell that thing for shit.
I don't think it either. I feel like this is one of the times in professional wrestling where what was happening in the ring for sure hurt worse than the person was making it seem like it did.
Yes. This, I gotta be honest, this to me was the most disappointing matches of the entire night. I was really let down by this because of spots like that. Because with the promo package that they did, and invoking Eddie's mother, and invoking her name and getting so personal in that, the finish was as anticlimactic as a WCW finish.
I agree. When he said I quit, it was I was a little flabbergasted. Like, my jaw was a little open. I was like, I can't believe that just ended right there. Like,
and I'm being really technical on this one because I this entire pay-per-view I was locked in. That's how attentive I was on this. Why in God's name does the ref not have a mic? Because here's my thing.
thank you.
In an I Quit match, in any other wrestling match, the referee should be seen and not heard. I have problems. As great as a referee as I have always thought Timmy White was, I hate watching that Hell in a Cell match between Triple H and Jericho because Timmy White ends up going into the cell and wrecking his shoulder. Excuse me. To me, as great as a referee can be, referees for the most part should be seen and not heard. They should not factor in or be the star of the show. In an I Quit match, the referee should be the single biggest driver of emotion that you can find. And WWE has always done it in I Quit matches, starting with the infamous one with The Rock and Mankind at the Royal Rumble. But I take you back a whole lot earlier than that. Ric Flair, Terry Funk. Tommy Young has the microphone with the cord, and he is in Flair's face and he is in Funk's face, and that cord is stretching all over that damn arena in Troy, New York. All over that place. Tommy Young has that thing. He might have 2 or 3 key grips behind him, just rolling that table I mean, good grief. But he's right there. When Flair slaps on that figure 4, and Tommy Young's right there with that mic right in Terry's face. My leg's breaking. It's breaking. Yes, I quit. If this would have been a normal situation, and by that I mean COVID is not happening, and you do the match just like that, you're literally having to watch for Eddie Kingston to do this.
Right.
But because of the submission that he had in, what if that arm? Can you guys see me mouthing the words "I quit" right now? No, you can't. Why? Because I'm watching myself on my feed as well. There's no way. They screwed that one.
Hey, 100%.
To me, lost every bit of emotion. Dude, this match, you could have made fans cry during this match. And I'm stealing this from Bully Ray on Busted Open because I heard this and oh my God, it made perfect freaking sense. John Moxley makes that reference about Eddie Kingston's mom. What about during that match, a picture of his mother's produced? Play off of that emotion, man. And they did. Eddie, I saw more emotion in Eddie Kingston's promo on being the elite than I did through that match. Because for Eddie Kingston, it was going back to the drawing board and all of the sins that he still has to pay for through his years of wrestling, and the fact that he sacrificed everything for it. By the way, that's Eddie Kingston's real gimmick. He's a villain, but he's troubled by that because he's constantly feels like he has to pay for his sins. That's why he carries the rosary.
And it's always been that way.
Yeah.
I remember Eddie Kingston when I don't really go to the shows anymore, but I used to go to independent wrestling shows in Cleveland constantly. And Eddie Kingston was at so many of them. I've seen Eddie Kingston wrestle at tons of indie shows.
Right.
And he's always been that way. It's always, I'm a bad guy, but I don't want to be a bad guy. I have to be a bad guy.
Right.
It's so good at it. He's so good at it. And I have to say, my favorite thing about the match actually did not happen at Full Gear. My favorite thing about the whole Moxley Eddie Kingston thing was the go home promo on Dynamite when Kingston had his back turned to Moxley. The camera work and just the execution of that all together was just unbelievably well put together. And Eddie Kingston that night made people who didn't already care.
Yeah.
Just with facial expressions he was making as Moxley was behind him talking about how the promise that you made to your mother, you lied, you can't keep it. Like,
beautiful.
So good.
I didn't hear your question.
Your thoughts?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's another reason why I think, if Kenny and Hangman had closed out the show, nobody would have cared. Thinking back on it now, I do sense a missed opportunity there, and we'll see what they do going forward. Obviously, Eddie's out of the picture because you have a new number one contender.
Eddie Kingston has bigger fish to fry now, and by bigger fish to fry, I mean shorter, longer hair, more jacked, and scary as hell. And by that, I mean Pac.
Yeah,
for sure.
Pac's literally about to run through that entire stable, and it's going to be amazing to watch because he's going to have matches with the Butcher, with the Blade, the Butcher, Rey Fenix, Penta, and Eddie Kingston, probably in that order.
Yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
Brian, you keep bringing up, well, you've mentioned a couple times that if had Kenny and Hangman closed the show, you don't think anybody would have cared. As the quite possibly the biggest Kenny Omega mark on the planet, I have to disagree with you. I actually, belts and championships have to mean something.
I agree with you.
With that said, I have one big gripe on this pay-per-view, and it's not that big, and it's not anything. It's just think back to the press conference that announced All Elite Wrestling. Think back to the Double or Nothing press conference in Las Vegas. Think back to basically anytime you heard Matt Jackson talk before AEW actually started. We're going to have the best tag team division in the world. This is going to be the best tag team company that there is. We're going to make tag team wrestling the main event. Okay. You're going to make tag team wrestling the main event. Well, then make it the fucking main event. If this tag match on this show isn't the main event, when is a tag team match going to be the main event?
Thank you. Exactly. Hold on to that. We're going to get there. And trust me, I'm unloading with both barrels when we get there. Because that has me hot. Real quick before we move into the other championship match, worthy of note. One thing happened over the pay-per-view during the pay-per-view that changed my perspective on something. I am now a big John Silver fan.
Absolutely. He is the unsung hero of AEW.
Oh my gosh. He's funny as hell on BTE. That dude is a powerhouse and is agile as hell. Oh, and then by the way, after I finished watching it, the next thing that YouTube brought up was a PWG match between John Silver and Brian Cage.
Yeah.
Brian Cage has John Silver up, almost like for a fall away slam, and he starts curling him. Does the fall away slam. A little while later, John Silver has Brian Cage's almost 300-pound ass up for a fall away slam, and he's not doing like as pronounced of curls as Brian Cage does, but he curled him 10 times and then did a fall away slam.
That is fantastic.
It was like, holy crap! This dude is probably our height.
Right.
The shreds. You know, his arms are about as big as my head. And I got a big ass melon. I'm a John Silver fan. John Silver needs to leave Dark Order.
I gotta say, one of my biggest mark out moments, if you want to call them that, one of my biggest mark out moments of the entire night was when he ripped Orange Cassidy's pockets off. That was so fantastic.
That match was the perfect blend of comedy and really freaking good wrestling.
I remember telling Logan when they made the announcement that Orange Cassidy and John Silver were going to be, they were originally supposed to be on the buy-in, and then they moved it to the main show. And that was the reason I turned the buy-in on from the very beginning, was I didn't know when exactly they were going to have that match on there. And I told Logan the minute that they put that graphic up and they made that match announcement, I said, that match is going to be hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Because Orange Cassidy and John Silver, like, those might be the two funniest guys in the company.
Yeah, agreed. And it was just as good as it was funny.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Brian, thoughts?
I agree that the ripping the pockets off moment was genius. Okay, you stick your hands in your pockets all the time. I'm going to take that away from you. Fine. Now what?
took away part of his arsenal, man.
Yeah.
Like, Double A used to always talk about how, three-legged table can't stand, man. So, speaking of Double A, Brian, I'll let you go first on this one, but there's one thing I want to talk about that gave me the warm and fuzzies for Darby Allin and Cody Rhodes. I'm glad I get to say that now.
Yeah.
I'm glad I get to say that. For those of you that haven't been following, midway through last week, it was announced that WWE had given up the trademark on the name Cody Rhodes. That's why Cody has always gone by the American Nightmare Cody. Can't really do anything about that. That's his first name. And Rhodes isn't his last name. Which means that Cody's claim that he's had on this finally went through.
And I always thought it was brilliant the way that when Brandy would come with him to the ring, that they would always announce them as Cody and Brandy Rhodes. So that way he kind of got his last name.
Right. Exactly. So, and this might be the only time where I can truly say that the ring announcer made it. And made it just beautiful. I always rip Justin Roberts for the Daenerys Targaryen ring introduction that he gives Cody. Seems to get longer and longer by the week. I'm being facetious in that, but it's just kind of my little running joke. But he always does the American Nightmare, which is always cool the way he does it. But when he introduced Cody for that TNT title match, it was very subtle. It was the American Nightmare, Cody, and then growled through the R in Rhodes. And as soon as he did that, they probably had about 1,000 fans at Daly's Place, somewhere around there. That was a pop. You could hear it, you could feel it, and I'm like, and then they put up the lower third with the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. This, why I love wrestling. That gave me the feels. Brian, go.
Pretty much since AEW has been a thing and I've been paying attention to it. And it's hard for me to quantify why, because this is not the kind of a guy you would think I would like. He's not the kind of guy that I normally gravitate towards, but there's just been something about Darby Allin. I don't know what it is. Even as I sit here tonight, I can't really quantify why, but I think it might just be the recklessness with which he wrestles. And I know that's not safe. I know that's not what you do if you want a long and fruitful career, but it's working for him right now. And, his size makes you think that he doesn't stand a chance against insert name of marquee guy here, but yet he keeps finding himself in the midst of these big feuds with people. And that's why I was hoping that enough time has passed to where they felt like, okay, let's give Darby, the TNT championship and see where he takes it. I mean, this match the psychology was off the charts from both guys. Cody's overzealousness and arrogance and hubris coming back to bite him in the tail, at the end was, stellar. And then you get the passing of the torch moment figuratively at the end where Cody is showing respect to Darby. I could have done without all the Taz crap, because Taz is just there to be a blowhard, I think, and he's not really providing anything of substance except, oh, just let me walk out with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks and, you know, yeah. So I could have done without that.
Sorry, you mentioned.
But this match for me is the one that, you know, of all of them, along with the Kenny Hangman match, this was the one that resonated with me the most, I think, because Darby's been my guy since the beginning of this
Right.
whole thing.
And I'm sorry for my reaction. You mentioned Ricky Starks.
Yeah, I know.
And I hear his name, and then I see his face, and as I said on our last show, that's one ugly son of a bitch. I could have done without him, and I can do without him. And give me Brian Cage, but literally the whole after, from the minute that Taz started speaking, I could have done without from there all the way through the rest of that. Trying to break his arm, which the way they had him positioned in there was really stupid.
Yeah.
But I could have done without all of that, because that takes away from Darby's moment that he should have had. Cody got down on one knee and was handing him the belt, was literally just, giving him the respect of, you beat me here. RJ.
I mean, the match was everything that we would expect the match to be from Darby and Cody. The outcome was about what I expected. I'm a huge Darby Allin fan, but I was obviously rooting for Cody. I hated and always hate the Taz stuff. I can't stand the Team Taz thing. And as I sit here thinking, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that Ricky Starks does well.
Right. You said that last one.
And I will reiterate it for eternity until he changes my mind. The man is awful. He is not believable. He thinks he's good looking and he's not. He thinks he's The Rock on the mic and he's not. He thinks he's Ric Flair in the ring and he's not. He's awful. He's so terrible.
So,
and for AEW to spend all of that time, and I don't just mean in this feud with Cody, I mean since October last year, to build Darby into what they've built Darby into, and then to have his moment cut short like that, it was an absolute travesty.
I agree. And I also agree with you with the fact that, you will always mention, whenever we mention Ricky Starks, that he's not good at anything. You will always mention that he's not good at anything, and I will always mention that as one ugly sumbitch.
It really is.
That's kind of that is going to become one of the many gimmicks on this show.
I mean, at least Sandman could drink beer well. Ricky Starks can't do anything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Hey, Sandman had that, and could swing a kendo stick.
Yeah, he could do that.
He could swing a kendo stick. Do we want to talk about the Elite deletion? I mean, it was what it was.
Yeah, it was all right. I was let down by it, I have to admit. It was good. I was entertained, but I was disappointed.
I have been disappointed with every deletion match since the Hardys left Impact.
I liked the one with Bray.
Oh yeah, the one with Bray was good. Yes. But they were so much better.
No doubt.
Right, before we get into the last match, which is going to be real fun to talk about, can we fast forward a little bit and talk about the segment that Cody had at Dynamite when we were all introduced to Jade Cargill? I got an issue with this. And no, it is not the fact that Brandy came out and dog walked this girl, which was freaking hilarious. Because
Brandy, fantastic in that segment.
oh my God, yes. Here's my thing. All right, so this chick comes out to talk crap to Cody, and then unveil that the giant that was targeting Cody is Shaq. Yes, Shaquille O'Neal, NBA Hall of Famer, greatest big man in the history of basketball. RJ, you brought up a really good point, and I'm going to steal it. Sorry. If you're going to do something like this, you should bring him out.
Especially when it's the caliber of Shaq.
Right. That is a name. Look, if you're gonna go celebrity getting in the ring, it's not gonna get much bigger than Shaquille freaking O'Neal. He's only been making celebrity guest appearances in professional wrestling since his rookie year with the Orlando Magic, when he was the referee for Hogan and Flair when Hogan won the WCW championship for the very first time. He's got I can't believe I'm really going to say this, he's got a long-standing legacy with wrestling. He's a fan. He's always been around. And he was backstage at Full Gear. Why not do it then? Hey, why not bring him out? Here's my big problem, and it is with Jade Cargill. Her promo, good. Her attitude, good. Her presentation, good. But number one, if you're going to bring someone out to say, oh, by the way, the person coming after you is Shaq, I would prefer it not be someone who I have to say, who?
Yeah.
Kind of like, Bobby Heenan used to talk about Sean Mooney. Who? Not only that. So if I'm having to go, who the hell are you? And who are you talking about, Shaq? That makes you slightly, in my book, irrelevant. So irrelevant, in fact, and I'm going to have fun with this one. I had to Google her. Never heard of her. Who the hell is this chick? Has she wrestled? No, she really hasn't wrestled. But according to her Wikipedia, she is a graduate of Jacksonville State University.
Wow.
Whoa. Hang on. I see this and I'm like, oh, shit. I can't talk bad about this chick. She's a gamecock. I can't do it. So I'm reading further. I'm like, did she play sports? Did she play sports? What the hell did she do? So I started to read, and she played basketball. I was now granted, this girl was 29. I'm 42, even though I graduated college in 2009. I'm like, I've never heard her name, and I still follow all sports. Jacksonville State. It's my alma mater. Go Gamecocks. I never heard of this girl. So I started reading her Wikipedia. She was all Atlantic Sun her last 3 years at Jacksonville State University. There's a problem in that, boys and girls. Jacksonville State is in the Ohio Valley Conference. Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida is in the Atlantic Sun. She's not a Gamecock. She's a Dolphin. She played at JU. You're so irrelevant that they can't even get your freaking Wikipedia right, lady. That's how irrelevant you are. You have no business invoking the name Shaq. That's my beef. Who the hell are you? And they can't even get your damn alma mater right. on your Wikipedia page. You matter to the wrestling world less than I do. At least Thunder Rosa follows me on Twitter.
There you go.
Heffa. Hey, Heffa.
That was amazing when she said that.
Here's my beef with all of it. Why Shaq? Why do we need to do this?
Shaq has been wanting to wrestle.
Why?
But again, this gets back to the legitimacy angle. I mean, that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with
Right.
sports entertainment versus professional wrestling.
All right. Hang on. Shaq has been wanting to wrestle someone since he was a Laker, since it was Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah.
He has made no bones about it. He has tried to lobby the WWE a million times. Put me in the ring with Cena. Put me in the ring with this guy. Put me in the ring with Big Show. Never happened. So now, not only is there a new wrestling promotion, not only is Shaq a wrestling fan, big, large personality, massive name. He also may or may not be a studio analyst for the NBA, and the NBA may or may not be televised on TNT.
He's under contract to TNT. That is exactly why Shaq.
So it's the, former TNT champion and a talking head on TNT. I'd also like to point out that in addition to Kenny Smith and Ernie Johnson on that panel, there's also the Fighting Pride of Leeds, Alabama, and according to Bo Jackson, the greatest athlete in the history of Auburn University, Charles Barkley.
I remember when he lost the bet and sang Georgia's fight song on that show. That was great.
I know.
Can we? I was actually gonna say, can we all just take a minute and be thankful that it's Shaq and not Charles Barkley that is the representative for TNT in this?
Okay.
Like, I'm 100% convinced that this is Shaq going to the network, begging them, I've wanted to do this forever. Please find a way to do this.
And who is
and Cody's the guy that it has to be.
Exactly. Well, for multiple reasons. Number one, Cody's the name most associated with AEW. And as far as in-ring talent, to actually be able to drag a 7-foot, 350-pound basketball center through a wrestling match, it's Cody Rhodes.
No doubt.
Cody's is the only guy on AEW's roster capable of pulling this shit off. And the sad thing is, he will.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a question of, I wonder if Cody can pull this off. No, bullshit. Cody will pull this off. Shaq will look like a freaking god.
And that's part of my thinking on this is that if this was taking place in the WWE, it would be, there's no way it would be Adam Cole, Pat McAfee. Like, it would be a farce. It would be treated as a joke. It would not be treated as a professional wrestling match. It would be treated as a celebrity putting on a performance. It will not be treated that way in AEW.
It will be treated like Big Show and Floyd Mayweather?
Right, exactly. It would be an absolute joke if it was taking place in WWE. But in AEW, especially with a guy like Cody, you could say a lot of things about Cody Rhodes. You could say a lot of things about him. One thing you cannot ever question is his passion and love and seriousness about professional wrestling. He takes this shit serious. It is his life. It has been his life since he was born. He does not take it as a joke. He will not allow Shaq to take it as a joke. He will not allow TNT to take it as a joke. He will not allow anybody that steps foot in that building under the umbrella of AEW to take it any less serious than he does.
Right.
I feel like this is going to be as legitimate of a fight as Shaq could ever have. Cody will make him take this for real.
1,000,000% agree. Brian, thoughts before we move into the what should have been main event?
Oh, I agree with that whole line of thought. I just, if this is the purest wrestling company, it just seems like a step in the wrong direction to me. I know I wouldn't book it.
Well, my opinion on that, and I'll kind of leave it at this. We've already had Le Dinner Debonair. That the horse is out of the barn on that one already. So I mean, hey, we've already done it.
And at least that was purely, I don't even know what to call that.
Horse shit. That's what
yeah,
you call
it. Yeah.
Shit.
At least this is gonna pull eyeballs.
Yes.
I mean, at least there's that.
Right.
More eyeballs than Mike Tyson did.
Right. Right. Okay. I have been waiting. I was not able to watch Full Gear until Wednesday. I have been waiting for 2 days to be able to talk about this. I love, like, heart emojis all over the place. I love tag team wrestling. Always have. And this match was with the 2 best tag teams, not only currently in wrestling, but the best 2 tag teams in the last 10 years. No questions, no arguments, nothing. FTR, Young Bucks, 2 best tag teams, 1 and 1A, and it does not matter who you have where. There's really not a wrong answer. This match, and I was critical of this, because why wasn't this booked at Double or Nothing, the biggest show you have? Why are we doing this at Full Gear? Why? Because we ain't done. This is chapter 1, in my opinion, of what is going to be a War and Peace length novel. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of the match. There's just one point I want to make, and then I'll let you guys go and have fun with this, because I've talked enough tonight. This was a love letter to tag team wrestling, because this had nuances of the 80s and 90s, 2000s, and a lot of, if you're looking at it from a story or a movie perspective, it had a shitload of Easter eggs. First off, you're cutting off the ring. You're isolating a body part.
What are you doing?
Hey, May. RJ and Adrian's cute as hell, dog. But you're cutting off the ring. You're working a body part. That's got the Andersons written all over it. It's got Tully and Arn written all over it. You have tag team offense, tandem offense. And that. While there were tag teams in the 80s that did that, Ricky and Robert, the Hearts, so on and so forth, it really didn't become a thing until the 90s with the Rockers. And then it just exploded from there. And you got plenty of tag team offense. And then in the 2000s, wrestling became simply more athletic. And it still has to this day. And now you have athletic tag teams. And those four guys did all of that. The one thing I loved, and it made me, I got warm and fuzzies on this one too, is the tribute to all the legendary tag teams whose finishers were featured in this match. They did the Steiners top rope bulldog. They did the heart attack. They did the spike pile driver.
Twist of Fate Swanton combo.
They did the Twist of Fate Swanton, and they did 3D. I'm leaving one out, and I'm leaving that one out on purpose. I'm getting there. Because if you look at it, Hearts, Brainbusters, Hardys, Dudleys, Steiners. 5 of the most important tag teams in the history of tag team wrestling. Yeah, there's a few more here and there that you can factor in there as well. You can't have that conversation without the Rock and Roll Express. But that was a straight up callback to all of that. Almost like, thank you for getting tag team wrestling to this night. And then then I have to call them this one time. And then the Revival had one last one. A little shout out to a tag team that got them to where they are. DIY. Ciampa and Gargano.
I popped so hard.
Oh, I teared up. I didn't pop. I teared up. And I'm probably about to again. And here's why. Because to me, it was a respect and it was an honor thing. Up until NXT TakeOver Toronto 1. Best tag team on the entire planet was Nick and Matt Jackson. No doubt about it. Who gave a shit who second was, because the gap between 1 and 2 was the Grand Canyon. But hey, these revival guys, they're pretty damn good. Brian and I went to an NXT show at the Agora. I think it was the second one they ever did. And we saw DIY and the Revival in that ring. And I remember it vividly. DIY hit Ciampa with the Shadow Machine, caught him a little high. They ended up having to stop the match. And I remember looking at B, because we were sitting, our seats were off to the left-hand side of the standing room only. And I looked at B and went, man, these guys are good. Holy crap, are these guys good. These guys are going to be scary really, really damn soon. And then they became NXT tag champs. And they got to that 2 out of 3 falls match with DIY when DIY beat them for the tag titles. In my opinion, that night was the night that the Young Bucks lost their position as 1A. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. They lost their position as 1. It stopped being 1 and 2. It was 1 and 1A from that night on. To me, that was FTR saying, hey, Tommaso, Johnny, thanks for getting us to where we are. Loved it. Loved the finish. Loved the fact that it was a springboard 450 that screwed FTR. The only thing I wish would have happened is instead of a super kick, it would have been a fist. And I'm stealing that one from Bully Ray too. Why? Because no flips, just fists. That's FTR. That's their line. If Nick Jackson, it was Nick, yeah, Nick. If Nick would have just blasted Wheeler right in the mouth and then pinned him, or something, Superman punch, instead of like the BTE trigger, just two fists right here, almost like a Pete Dunne kind of thing, and then got the pin. That would have been the chef's kiss. But I'm cherry picking here. We've seen a lot of great contenders for match of the year. It's very appropriate that earlier, just a little while ago, we were talking about the panel on NBA pregame. Because during the All-Star break, when we're doing the slam dunk contest, anytime someone's completely running away with the contest, Kenny Smith likes to say, "Let's go home. Let's go home." Well, as far as match of the year, let's go home.
I agree.
Let's go home. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to do something magical, in my opinion, to change my mind.
That match got 5.25 stars from Wrestling Observer, and that might be low.
Yes, I would agree. I'm sorry. That might no. That match is in my top 4 of greatest matches I've ever seen. That Omega Okada, the one that got 7 stars, not their first one, their first match. The first Omega Okada, FTR in the Bucks, Taker and Shawn, WrestleMania 25, Flair and Steamboat, 2 out of 3 falls. That match, it should be archived and put somewhere. Greatest tag team match I've ever seen.
I will not go that far.
Oh, I totally will.
It's one of my favorite things in my entire life is ranking things. My parents laugh at me about it all the time. It's third for me for sure.
The fuck is wrong with you? What's the other 2?
The best tag team match I ever saw in my life was the Golden Lovers and the Young Bucks. It's not close.
That was good, but no.
The emotion that match had, it's. I'm sorry, FTR and the Young Bucks didn't come close to that.
All right, what's the second one?
The Young Bucks versus Kenny and Hangman, and that one was in AEW.
No. I might give you Bucks and Golden Lovers. I will not give you Bucks versus Hangman and Kenny. I won't. I won't give you that one. We will not ever agree on that one. We will agree on that as much as we will who is a better college football program. And we'll never agree on that either. Even though you guys kicked the shit out of us this year. I don't care. We'll never agree. But I've said my piece on this match, and I'm content, and I'm happy. Guys, who wants to go next?
RJ, go ahead.
All right.
I don't have a whole lot more to say about the actual match. Patrick pretty much tied it up into a nice little bow there. We had all the callbacks to all the tag teams, and tag team love letter to tag team wrestling is a absolutely phenomenal way to describe the match. It was everything that we have all wanted it to be in these 7 years that we have been waiting for it. That match, that's other than everything Patrick said, that's really all I can say about it. It was the match that everybody was waiting for. That match was the reason why Full Gear had 15,000 more buys than it had last year. They did not disappoint. They put on the show that everybody wanted them to put out. It should have been the main event. And on a personal level, I just have to say that I have been waiting since, and I mentioned this to you guys in our chat that we have, ever since the first rumblings and rumors that the Bucks and the Elite guys were all thinking about starting a wrestling company, before it even got leaked that All Elite Wrestling had been copyrighted by them, I have been waiting for the night the Young Bucks get crowned as the tag team champions of whatever company that was going to be. And I have also been obviously waiting for the night when Kenny Omega would finally become the number one contender to the AEW World Championship. On a personal level, Kenny becoming the number one contender at the beginning of the night was fantastic. It was unbelievable. I for sure shed a tear, but not as many tears as I shed watching the Young Bucks win the tag titles they created. I have waited for the moment that we all knew was eventually coming, of the Young Bucks being crowned All Elite Wrestling Tag Team Champions. I have the word finally written really big on my paper over here on my notes. I make no bones about how much of a mark I am for the Elite guys, specifically Kenny and the Bucks. I don't think that there are wrestlers on the planet that touch any of them. So for both of those things to happen in one night was unbelievably fantastic for me as a wrestling fan, loving what I love the way that I do and have for years. And then for the Bucks to do it in the way they did it against who they did it against, it just was so much more than I could have ever imagined it being. That
Yeah.
the Bucks winning the tag titles is everything outside of Kenny winning the world championship. It's the number 2 thing that I've wanted since since before AEW became a thing. And to have it happen in one of the greatest tag team matches that has ever happened. Because, I mean, let's be honest. The Young Bucks go over Kenny and Hangman for the tag titles. That's easy. Nobody's going to make any bones about the Young Bucks beating Kenny and Hangman for the tag titles. Nobody's going to complain about that. If they would have beaten SCU for the tag titles, nobody's going to complain about that. Let's pretend anybody. If the Best Friends are the tag team champions and the Young Bucks win the belts for the first time from the Best Friends, that's awesome. The Bucks winning the tag titles is something that me and a lot of other people, I'm not saying that this is exclusive to me, it's something that me and a lot of other people have been wanting and needing and hoping for and grasping for a very long time. And it could have been anybody. But for it to be the Revival, for it to be FTR after this build-up that this match has had even before these 4 guys were all in the same company together, It's just, it was so perfect. There's no other one word that I can use to describe the night as a whole, but mostly that tag team match other than perfect. It was perfectly put together. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything that I would have wanted changed at all. It was perfect. Other than it being the main event. That's the only thing I would change, is it being the main event. That show going off the air with the Young Bucks as the tag champions is the only thing that I would change.
Brian,
But the match itself, perfect.
Brian, final thoughts, my friend.
The Bucks FTR match exhausted me, and I mean that in with as much respect as I have. I mean, it was, I felt like I had been in the match when it was over. It was that, jaw dropping, and those guys put on a clinic. It was clear right from the start. The contrast in styles and everything that we've talked about. That these two guys are ready to, or these four guys are ready to put on a show that would leave you wondering, how is anybody going to follow that? And maybe that's one of the reasons that Kingston and Moxley was kind of a letdown, was because you knew that what they were going to do wasn't going to come close to what the Bucks and FTR did. So, I mean, that match delivered for me also, for all the reasons that both of you have stated.
All in all, it was an absolutely amazing pay-per-view. I cannot wait to see where they go with so many of these different angles. Before we get out of here, guys, any final thoughts? Because I have to be honest, I'd like to end this show somewhat soon, because for the last 20 minutes, I've had to pee. And I'm upstairs tonight as opposed to downstairs in the living room, because Olivia has friends spending the night.
No, I Full Gear was awesome, and I look forward to seeing how they're going to spin this forward.
RJ, final thoughts from you, my friend. Nope, we lost him. Okay, makes it even better. For RJ, who decided, you know what, screw this, Patrick's got a pee, so I'm gonna make it easy on him. And for Brian, hey, are you? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I love when my Skype just randomly closes itself. It's great.
Oh yeah, no, it was hilarious. I was like, all right, so RJ's decided, you know what, Pat's got a pee, so I'm just gonna make this easy on him. Final thoughts, buddy.
I said what I had to say, man. Like,
Right.
I did have one thing that I wanted to bring up.
All right.
And I mentioned it to you guys. I'll be real quick.
Thank you.
Dear everybody complaining that Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley is going to be on free television, shut up.
Oh my God, yes. You know what? Look, I want to get into this. RJ, we might reconnect later this weekend and do like some bonus content on this one, because I really wouldn't mind, but my bladder is screaming at me. So how about we talk later?
Yeah.
All right. Hey guys, guess what? Bonus content this weekend. Awesome. Guys, we thank you guys so much for putting up with us and joining us and being a part of the community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment below. You guys have seen the socials. You guys have seen the email. Get in touch with us. We love talking about this stuff. We'd love to hear from you guys, what you guys thought about Full Gear. Where do you think we're going to go next? It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Guys, thank you so much as always for joining me on this crazy, wild little ride. I love you guys, and we thank you guys for joining us. So until next week, for Brian, for RJ, I'm Patrick. This has been Wrestling with Egos. And just a reminder, this is why we love wrestling.